And now maybe about the other variety, because your family line is also somewhat bound to Neuburger, right? So
Yeah, so
could you please tell us
yeah,
the legend of Neuburger, maybe?
yeah. So Rote Veltliner is bound to my father's side of the family, and the Neuburger is bound to my mother's side of the family. So my mother's from the Wachau Valley, and Neuburger was in Wachau once one of the predominant grapes before Riesling took its place. And there are a few legends how the Neuburger came into the Wachau, because its original origin is somewhere in Romania at Siebenbürgen, um, at least according to genetics. And so people had to explain why there was Neuburg in the Wachau and nowhere else, or at least not in the closer proximity. And one of the tales is, and of course this one's the true one, is that a fisherman and his friends, which were called Christopher Ferstel and Mach um, pulled out a bundle of wines out of the Danube because bundle of wines were used to secure payloads on ships. Like nowadays you would use bubble wrap. They just stuffed wines left and right of the payload, and they pulled out this bundle of grapes, planted not of grapes of wines, planted them next to the old castle, the old ruin in Spitz on the Donau, and then from there it started to spread. And because the first vineyard was next to the castle, it was named the new wine from the castle, which translates to die neue Rebe von der Burg, which then got shortened to Neuburger, so Newcastle. And from there it spread through the Wachau. And so my mother's family always saw it as her duty, as my father's family saw it as his duty, to um, yeah, to produce Neuburger, to take care of this wine. And then when my father proposed to my mother said, "Yes, I want to marry you, but before I leave the Wachau for you, you have to plant me an orchard of apricots," which is a little bit farther up in our village, and a vineyard of Neuburger, which my father wasn't happy about because apricots are very work intensive in in the middle of the summer where the winemaker normally has time to relax. So now when we are ready, when we are finally finished with the leaf work in the vineyard, we have two more weeks of work with the apricots. And Neuburger he wasn't happy about because he's even more difficult when it comes to the leaves not growing in the direction you want, and with the prudeness to with the with being very prone to develop botrytis. It's even a little bit worse than Rotovettina. But over the time, we really, yeah, started to love and like this variety, because the wines really are really nice. Um, they just, in our assortment, in our range, they really fill a good hole between the other wines and the Rotovettlin, and in between is the Neuburger, which just, it's one of our favorite wines. Really, it's so nice to produce, so nice to drink. Yeah, so it really fit into these two families being merged. Um, and since then, we do both of them.
And maybe that's why the name homage, right, on the bottle under or beneath Neuburger, right?
Yeah, genau. The homage to my grandfather who pulled the wine out of the Danube.
What a legend. And so, how would you describe maybe a Neuburger? Because in my experience, that's the kind of food wine which I like because it doesn't have the typical fruit notes in general, but it has more like a foodie ingredient, kind of nuttiness, and also maybe another quality of fruit. So maybe like candied or a little bit like, yeah, sometimes like kind of dried and also very kind of broad mouthfeel, not so aggressive acidity. So I think it's a very good food wine. How would you describe this variety, or maybe the wine?
I would, I would describe it actually the same way you just did. So, creamy, nutty, very subtle acidity, not too loud in its fruitiness. And I always recommend Neuburger, especially to classic, starter dishes like a simple salad or a cream soup or some kind of fish or seafood. Where because Neuburger doesn't steal the show, Neuburger just he's like a pinch of umami He just um, he gives support to the food. He doesn't steal the show away. He just supports it. Um, yeah, it's just a good wine to drink next to food without taking away the attention.
Yeah, true.
And this is a job he does quite fabulously.
It's a food companion and not a food overtoner, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
True. And also, Rota Veltliner, but Rota Veltliner is the mother or the father of this grape variety, right? So
Genetically speaking, he's the father. So he's Neuburg is a crossing between Silvaner and Roter Veltliner.
okay.
And yeah, and his siblings would be Zierfandler and Rotgipfler, which are very common in the Termine region. So these three are all children of Roter Veltliner.
Mm. But you also have other varieties, so Grüne Veltliner and Riesling, of course. So how would you describe, maybe just to talk about your Premier Cruise, or we can also talk about other ones, but maybe the Premier Cruise like Spiegel and Steingraben, I think Wieland you also mentioned. So what are the subtle differences, maybe in terms of winemaking or in terms of vineyards?